phone, click on a link, and it will allow you to take a picture. It will allow you to basically send a message in real time to the incident management team showing what your concern is and that someone should come and take a look. If it's an acute, something that's a right now thing, obviously 911 is still the best way to have something happen immediately. But if it's not an acute situation, but something that you're just concerned about, you can certainly use that link, and then we will get somebody out there as soon as possible to take a look. The other thing I'm looking for, trying to go over with the sheriff, these evacuations, when we do an evacuation order, if we don't hold to the order, and all I'm saying is that when circumstances allow, that we can allow people in to put gas in generators or put gas in pumps. The other thing I'm going to try to work on is maybe a waiver form that, you know how things go these days, but something that just says that anyone over the age of 18, so children are excluded in the evacuation zone, that if people could go in, sign the waiver, we would have that. We've informed you of the risks, but it would allow folks to go basically in and out of the evacuation zone. I'm not saying that's 100% there, but I'm just saying that that's something that I'm working on and I'm trying for. Just kind of in closing, I just want to talk about 2011 versus now. We've got a lot of people, I talked to so many people today that have said, this is nothing like 2011, that it's very different. And then I've talked to other people that say this is worse than 2011. And all that's really showing and telling me is that things have changed. The river changes and it goes where it wants to. And so things change all the time. And so we can't really base our sense of security on the fact that, you know, 2011 at my house was worse than it is right now. And so I'm safe and I'm good. I just want people to take the warnings very seriously in that, you know, we still don't know. Things could get better, but things could get a lot worse. And so we just want to be prepared for that. In closing, I just want to once again say thank you for your patience. I'm going to be around after to answer any questions that I can. I'm also going to give out my phone number to anybody who wants it, that if you have certain concerns or whatever, you can get a hold of me or I can answer questions for you. So thank you.
Just one housekeeping item from the school as well. They asked that we use the east side. They still have some programs going on, some sports and other programs. So if we can use the east side parking lot, that door should be open for any other public meetings that we have. Also wanted to address the road closures. That is also on the fact sheet that we have. Those road closures, there is 3 of them. Tower Street will be closed, Tower and 3rd, to all traffic. Nancy Lou Drive will also be closed. Stone Street, this will be north of Flamingo Drive, will be closed. And Schmidt Road down over by Mullen, that will be closed as well. And they have officers there manning those stations. As far as evacuations from last night, again, that is also on that information sheet, so please be sure to pick that up. We have Tower Street north of 3rd is under the evacuation order, Kerwall Drive, as well as Channel, Nancy Lou, Keck and Stone Street north of Flamingo, Schmidt Road, and the road that's off Mullen Road is also under that evacuation. Okay, up next we'll get an update from Ray Nicholas with the National Weather Service.
Well, I'd just like to give you guys a quick update on what the latest projections are here on the Clark Fork. As we all know, we just had that incredible snowpack this winter, and it's melting off now. We got a lot more snow still yet to come off. We're taking all the latest weather information that we're looking at now and forecasting as we go into the future here, and we're projecting that into this forecast that I'll show you here in just a second to see how much higher the river is going to get here in the short term, and then it's going to keep on going, unfortunately. So let's go to the next slide here, and I'll talk a little bit about this. So what this is the river gauge location out on the Clark Fork River out in East Missoula. So as we go through time here, this data that we're looking at here is the actual data from that gauge location. And when I downloaded this afternoon around 3 or 4 o'clock, the gauge was at 12.48 feet, so about 12 and a half feet. Back in 2011, we were in that 12.7 range. So according to our latest forecast, we should exceed that here as we go into the Friday, Saturday time frame. Right now we're projecting it to get up in that 13.5 foot range. What we've got going on here in the next few days is we've got some rain coming through, but this is continuous snow melt. We're getting an inch of water coming out of the mountains every day. So that's like an inch of rain up there every single day, and that's been going on for the last week or more. So that's what's filling up the rivers. The reason we're seeing this little fluctuation here in the crest and the projection downward is, at least for the time being, we have a little bit of good news in the fact that when we get this low pressure system dropping down out of the northwest, it's going to cool the temperatures down in the mountains. Here in Missoula, we'll only be in the 50s on Friday, so it'll be in the 30s up in the mountains. So that's going to create just that little dip crest in the river. But it's going to be rolling, and the problem is, like I said, as we go out in time, for the foreseeable future, we don't see this thing dropping below flood stage, the flood stage of 10 feet, and it could go on all month. It could not drop below the flood stage all month long. So that is the latest projection. A few folks were asking about, we make this projection on the flow in the river up at East Missoula, and then that's obviously projected downstream. We can give a forecast on the particular area, like this Orchard Homes area and Tower Street and all the different streets down there. We can say that's going to get inundated with water, but we can't say exactly how high that water is going to get. We can't project that this far downstream because it's a different cross-section of water up at that point than it is down here. And obviously the river channel is changing and moving around and doing all that kind of stuff. So like the captain said, you got to be very cautious and ready for anything to happen on the river here as it's moving down through the area here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should cover. But anyway, well, I think we can obviously answer questions here or after the rest of the presenters. Yeah, that was just the latest forecast. So I'm done with that. I'm done. Yeah.
Can't hear you. All right. Next we have up Jeff Brandt, the Assistant Chief with Missoula Fire Department, to talk about safety messaging and some fire department operations.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. So we just want to talk a little bit about just staying informed, and and I want to say thanks to the PIO, the incident management team that's on scene that's taken over this, and the county and the city folks and everyone standing up, and your public information officers, and we're doing the best job that they can. They've stood up and doubled the staff. I see today walking into the incident command center of the public information officers and sitting up the trailers. So a lot of that stuff is out there, and that's really the most important thing, is staying informed and of the best projections that we can have from our weather and our folks, and we're getting those messaging out so we can, and utilize those contact numbers that we have available for you out there on the website and for us locally here. So some of the hazards that we continue to see out there, as we talked a little bit, Mel did, about the underground utilities, And while there's the gas and electric that are there, but remember some of the messaging from the power companies has been that you need to treat all those downed and power lines as if they were live. So there's a lot of people that are sometimes confused, and even in the fire department, as we come up on scenes, we look at those, maybe they're cable TV lines or whatever, but we in the emergency response, we treat all lines as if they are down or alive. If they are live, and so if they're electrified. So if you see those, report those, and we'll get crews out there. And hopefully the report Captain Rio was saying, for you to be able to snap picture and then be able to see send those hazards into our planning center, and then we can get folks out there. One of the largest, the street signage that we see out there and the hazards and the traffic that you guys are dealing with, and we're looking to sign those, the roadway closures and those access points. And this morning, I was down in that area about 6 o'clock this morning, and some of the homeowners that were dealing with water issues and the pumps that were going on. I know you guys are doing a lot of work to try to keep your neighborhood mitigated and that water out. But one of the residents stated that the night before they had a couple four-wheelers traveling through there, through that standing water, through that moving water, and ran over his intake hoses. And so we reported that situation, and we're setting up those road closure signs, and the law enforcement has some people out there to deal with that. So let's talk a little bit about the flooding and the water that's moving through your neighborhood, and the difference between flooding and standing ground water. So that moving water, you know, has significant water flow, and we talked a little bit on Monday about the power of that hydrology, and where 6 inches, right, can move you and your neighbor, your friend, as you're standing in that flow water, but 12 inches can move a vehicle with that power. So stay out of that. Unfortunately, we are still seeing people along those weirs and dikes that are recreating, walking, looky-loos into your neighborhood, and we're trying to stop that. And so the dangers of that, use of trails, use of roadways, and we're trying to help you guys out with messaging that and trying to mitigate that and slow those down. One of the things I'd like for you to take advantage of are those field observers that we have out there, and we're increasing those numbers every day. So FOBs are field observers, and those are guys that are going out, utilizing the maps and out there in your neighborhoods. And those people are armed with information for you. And so if you do see them in your neighborhood, they should be able to provide you with some information about what they're doing, but more so the click to the website, the county's website, is being stood up and paid a lot of attention to, and then the information trailer, and ask you to stay informed in that. Did you have a? Well, they don't really have a uniform or anything like that, but they really don't have. We're on for some of the field observers. These are just, we've recruited people, mostly for the Sheriff's Department, are doing a great job with that. We've recruited some volunteers and some DNRC folks that are out there from the Forest Service coming in. They're very familiar with the mapping software that we're using and punching in those coordinates and trying to identify those hazards area. And those folks are out there daily. Along with our operations folks behind me, along with this, we've got safety team members out there and logistics people out there moving around and trying to help things out. So would like to, as we're passing on and getting information out as far as the health hazard, and Shannon, are you going to speak a little bit to that? So if you are out in the water, sandbagging, let's remember the temperature of that water and long-term exposure of that water create hypothermia, and then the hazards that are on the groundwater, and then if you're in that water, working in that water, just making sure that you take those health precautions and washing your hands and washing anything that's come in contact in that water. Oh, and myself, and we have, looks like 5 of our operations folks in the back row here, and well, Captain Rio is also operations, but we'll be around after this meeting to answer some questions if you have.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have Jess Jordan with the Army Corps of Engineers. He did take some of the concerns that were addressed at the last public meeting. I know they went out and observed some of the levees, inspected some of those, and he has an update.
Thanks. Yeah, so just a quick update on talk about locally here and then the basin. So we're still staffed up at about 11 core staff in the basin. We're wrapping up the Plains wastewater treatment plant stabilization. We'll move to a second project up there. And we'll be working through that project on probably through Saturday, Sunday. After the last meeting, we did take a look at the levees in this area, walked it with our civil engineer, and at that point in time, things look good. We're not, based off the reconnaissance we did that night and we've been doing since then in the rest of the basin, we haven't noticed any levees in danger of any avulsions or overtopping or the like. So for what it's worth, we're feeling rather confident about levees not overtopping and holding. Also brought some brochures on sandbagging. There is a correct way to sandbag. You don't just stack them on one top of another as a wall. So please take a brochure or talk to me afterwards. To that end, we just 45 minutes ago, there are 30,000 more sandbags that have been deployed by us out of Libby and about 5,000 super sacks. For those who don't know what a super sack is, that's a 3 foot by 3 foot but 4 foot high mega sandbag essentially that's loaded by equipment and moved by equipment. Tomorrow in the afternoon there will be another 90,000 sandbags and another 10,000 super sacks available. And currently they're sitting at Missoula County Public Works, so coordinate with the county for a disbursement of those. We'll continue to be here through the flood, continuing to finish up our work in Plains, and then annual or daily reconnaissance of the other levees in the area just to make sure that things are ship-shape.
Thank you, Jess. Next up from the Health Department, Shannon Terrio.
I don't know how, excuse me, I don't know how many of you were here the other night, and if I'm just repeating myself, but basically I'm here to talk about wells and septic systems. Wells, if you are on a well and your wellhead is surrounded or underwater, then you can assume that it is contaminated. I wouldn't even bother testing it. I would just wait until the water goes down, and in the meantime, drink bottled or boiled water. To boil water, you boil it for 5 minutes, basically. And then it will be safe to use for drinking and culinary purposes. If your well is affected by groundwater, so there's not water around your well, there still could be contamination of your well, then you can get it tested to see if you have contamination. One thing that was asked, and I would recommend not drinking it until you know. One thing that was asked at the last meeting is if you can shower in the water before you know whether it's contaminated or not, or if you do need to be under a boil order. This is a weird answer, and I know it's a weird answer, but the answer is yes, you can shower in it. Don't drink the water when you're showering. I'm going to say at the same time, if you're in flood water, you need to wash your hands after you're in flood water, so that seems different, but your well is not the same as contaminated flood water. If you have a well that is pouring flood water into it, then don't use it for washing, but that's probably not the case. So that's why you can actually use it for washing your clothes or taking a shower. Then, if you're on a septic system though, we would ask that you don't just use a lot of water. Septic systems do two things. They get rid of the waste and they treat the waste. If you're in an area where your septic system is covered in water and you're able to flush the toilet, that means that it is not treating the wastewater. That means that your waste is going pretty much right into the floodwaters. So, because once it hits water, there's just not any treatment that's going to happen. More likely is if your system is covered with water, it's not going to work well. If you have water coming up through your drains, your house drains, or in your bathtub, that means that that water is coming through your septic system. And so that should be treated like sewage. You should think about an area that's been contaminated by sewage and make sure you thoroughly clean it and disinfect it before you use it again. One thing that people think about is, hey, maybe I could pump my tank and get 1,000 gallons worth of room. That's something that we tell people to do if their system's failing and they need time to get it replaced. However, odd but true, when your tank is pumped and it's surrounded by water, unless it's specifically designed not to float, even though it's in gravel and dirt, it can rise up on the water once it's pumped out, and that can ruin your septic system. It can cause dirt to get in, it can cause breaks from your lines, so that's not something that you want to do, for sure. The other thing I want to talk about is pets. Sunny is here and can answer any questions afterwards, and it was already mentioned before, but animal control will help. If you're evacuated and you need help placing your pet or having your pet cared for during the flood, call animal control and they can either accommodate you or connect you to somebody who can. One question that came up, and I don't know if the person is here, they asked about the well water here at the school. The school is on Missoula water, so it's not a concern. That's a public water supply that is tested and treated, so that's not a problem. Then if you have any questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. We do have, for those with wells, if you do need potable water, Missoula Water is open from 7:30 to 5:30. You can bring containers and fill up any water needs that you have down there off of Broadway. That's also in that fact sheet as well. On the Northwestern Energy side, if the power does go out as a cause of some of these floodwaters, they are not going to be going in and turning that back on. So if it trips due to floods, you may be without power, and once the water recedes, they will then come in and get power restored. We did have a limited power outage over off of in the Schmidt area, where they did have to turn power off to a few of those residents affected over there. Some safety concerns and some trailers that got knocked off their foundation that were still connected to power. So next up, we've got Anne Marie with Team Rubicon. I'd like to give a round of applause for Team Rubicon. All of their volunteers have been down helping, have also been coordinating other community volunteers, and they've just been a great help.
Thank you. I can't take credit for it. It's the community of Missoula that's really stepped up. All those wonderful volunteers who have come out and shoveled their little hearts out have been fantastic. So thank you, Missoula. If you are a member of the Missoula community or a member of the greater community and you want to help and you can't shovel sand, the best way to do that is to donate cash, and that's always true in any disaster. The United Way is collecting funds for this effort, and they will help us buy more sand. The companies that are giving us sand are being extremely generous, but running trucks and equipment is expensive. So if you go to the United Way, they are more than happy to help us help you. And we really do thank your patience and all. I would have one ask, and most of you are really good about it. You just drive slowly. There's so many people out there, and they're bringing kids and all that. So when you come into our area, please drive slowly. We would appreciate it. In general, we're going to be open from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. until, on Thursday and Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday we're going to shorten those hours a little from 9 to 5. However, you know, the sand and the sandbags are there. Anything that's there can be picked up. I cannot guarantee there will always be a forklift. That is being run by the very generous folks at Boyce Lumber, and they're being wonderful about it. I cannot say enough about them. volunteers can show up at any time. In general, we're trying to run them from, at 9 a.m. and then send them home for lunch or feed them because, again, Missoulians are generous and they're bringing us food, which is wonderful. And then we're starting at 1 again, and then we get a wave around 6 until 8. And thank you again. There will be a few more of us on the ground tomorrow. So I'm hoping that we can help more homeowners directly. I can't promise that, but I'm hoping that. Again, I thank you very much for welcoming us here to your community. We really appreciate it.
Okay, I know last time there were a lot of policy questions. These are operations folks that are specifically here to work with this emergency. I know there was a lot of concerns on policies. We do have a floodplain administrator here, Jamie Erbacher, that if you'd like to meet afterwards, some elected officials with your concerns as well. We'll open it up for questions right now. Do we have any questions at all?
So if you guys are sitting up there and you're with law enforcement or fire, search and rescue, you guys have been amazing. If you're sitting up there as an elected official, you're a county commissioner, you fail every one of your constituents. If you're up there as OEM and you do any sort of planning there, you fail this county. You've done no planning whatsoever. 98, 2011, you knew it was coming back and you did nothing. Nothing at all. And there's a whole, I know you said, well, it'll affect people downstream. How do you know that by your time? You fix one problem, the next one will pop up, you fix the next problem. If you guys aren't willing to do that, you shouldn't be in office. Shame on you. Absolutely should be disgraced. It's disgraceful to even think that anybody voted for you guys. It's absolutely unbelievable. But again, if you are a first responder, you're sitting up there in any sort of that capacity, thank you very much. We've dealt with Missoula police officers, Missoula County Sheriff's deputies, both fire departments, search and rescue is doing great. Put it in there. It absolutely does.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have another question?
Just practically, at what stage do you worry that floodwaters will not move straight and what are the contingency plans? Or are you worried that floodwaters will come through?
Are we worried that the floodwaters will go over 3rd Street? Do we have Adrian?
You know, right now we don't have that in the predictions, but it's something that we're continually evaluating as to where that water's going. Part of the reason of having these field observers going out is so that we can see some of the predictions and the progression based on where those river gauges are and how much rise we're actually seeing into those areas, so that we can start to compare those. If we do get water up to 3rd Street, it will be the same process, is that we will start to look at areas where we need to potentially evacuate people out of those, and it'll be the same folks that are going to be carrying out those operations. And if we have to close 3rd Street, we may have to do that.
So as of now, 3rd Street will be open for you believe?
As of right now, there are no plans to close 3rd Street. That's correct.
And any road closures we'll be updating daily. Follow again social media. That fact sheet will have those updates as well. Do we have any other questions? Yep.
I've had a couple questions for people that have pets still in their homes in the evacuation area.
Okay.
Is there any help for them to get their pets out of their homes? And then lastly, there are some questions coming from people that live out of state that have family that are in evacuation zones, and they're wondering if there's any support for their, they have family that are elderly, and they're wondering if there's any long-term support. It sounds like this could last through into June, and they're concerned about, they do have some family here, but is there any county support to help people with housing or anything else, or is that something you can't let off?
So on that NC Web, there is a link for both volunteers, donations, and other people that need assistance as well. We've got a lot of community organizations coming out of the woodworks to help. We've got a lot of volunteers that are interested in helping as well, and we are trying hard to get those requests, work with the appropriate agencies, and getting that assistance there.
How about pets?
And I'm sorry, can you repeat the pet question again?
So we've gotten requests from people who have pets still in the flood zone and in their houses, and they're wondering when could they get in there and get their pets, or is there someone that can help them in the county, emergency responder, or someone to go in and get their pets?
So that is also something that if they are requesting assistance for pets, need additional assistance, that's something that we would coordinate with operations on to make sure that it's safe to go in there. Again, they can fill out that request form and we can document that down and get that addressed.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay, we will break out into smaller groups here. If you have individual questions, you can come up and get those answered. If you have any questions on the map here, we can also zoom in and work with that. I will say that we have also received questions on, is my home impacted in this, or do you foresee? Also on that INSEE website, under Orchard Homes and some GIS and mapping, you can actually open that link. In the top search part, you can put in your address. It'll pull up your address on that map, and then you can zoom out and see a large portion of this map, know how far you are and if your home is in any of these instances. More information about the waiver and how we go.
So I'm going to try to get on that first thing in the morning. So after our meetings from 8 o'clock, 9, and then 10. And then as soon as I'm done with that, it's going to be the first thing I work on tomorrow. And I'm not sure who asked that question. I'm sorry. Okay. So that's what I'm going to be doing first thing tomorrow. And I have to work with someone at the county attorney's office. So it might take me just a little bit, but I'm going to get it done as quick as I can. Yep.
Okay, thank you for coming and attending tonight. And we'll be up here for additional questions.